In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to pipe buttercream roses onto cake pops. So what are we going to need? We've got a disposable piping bag, we have a coupler so that we can easily clean and change our tip if we need to. We have a 102 piping tip, which is one of the rose ones in the Wilton. I've got some scissors to cut our piping bag, some nice soft pink buttercream, and a spatula to apply it into the bag. So I've pre-done some cake pops, but you'll also see that I have a polystyrofoam ball onto a stick, and that's our practice run. So when you're working with them, if you want to have a go first and trial before you get onto the actual cake pops, you can just get one of these from craft stores or art supply places and use that as a bit of a test dummy. So what we're going to do is unscrew the coupler. It comes into two parts. Place the first part into our piping bag as far up as we can. Get a rough idea of how high up it actually is going to go. Press it back down a bit and cut. And then we're going to place our piping tip on top and then the second half of our coupler. And that just makes it far less likely to burst your bag from the metal piping tip as well. So we're going to create a C curve in our hand and act as a funnel. Place some of our nice buttercream into there. Fold it back up and we'll get ready to pipe. Now, the way that you hold a piping bag, you can give it a pinch, twist it once or twice and then it's ready to go, or fold this over. Or the other technique that I like to go with is to lay it flat on your index finger, wrap behind and then in front. We always want, with our rose petal tips, to have the big bit at the bottom, like a teardrop shape, and the skinny bit at the top. So when we're working, always make sure that it's facing the correct way, or you'll end up with really big puffy roses instead. So we're going to take our dummy one first, to have a bit of a test run. The first thing we need to do is create a base for our petals to go onto. So we're going to create what's called a candle wick, and that is simply by holding our piping tip right against the object, giving a little squeeze and just going up and down, and you get a little wriggle. It's kind of like a little bit of an S wriggle. And then what we're going to do is come at the back here, rotating our foam ball, make one full rotation and then twist to break it off, and that just does a full circle around that candle wick, and then we can start building on that and doing all of our petals. So I'm going to have that facing me, and now what we're going to do is create little rainbows. You just want an arc shape. If you can keep your elbow nice and straight there and just turn your hand, not curving your wrist. You don't want to be doing flicks. You just want, like windscreen wipers, to going from side to side. Touching on one side, lift up a little bit to get that arc shape and then drop it, and you can see we've got a little rainbow there. It's just basically a nice curve. We're going to go repeating that, coming back on itself about a third, placing the next one, coming back by a third, and we'll fit 4 in our first row. And you can see when we go nice and slow, it gets some feathering to it. It also depends on what icing that you're using. Now we've got our second row. Doesn't matter where we start, this time we're having 5 petals. So we're going to hold on to it, create one rainbow, come back, working our way around. Try and keep your piping tip nice and straight, don't lean it back. It will make it unfurl a little bit too much, and it will make your rose a little bit too open, and you'll start to see gaps and holes, and that's when you'll notice the foam, and in our case the cake pops poking through. So now it's starting to come together. We have a look of a real rose. We're just going to keep building, adding more and more layers, working our way around the ball and continuing it. So we've got our 3 rows now. It's starting to look like a real rose. Now all we want to do is basically hide the rest of the cake pop. So we're going to continue creating those arc shapes. Nice and around. Got another row done. These are fairly time consuming in that you will have to do a lot of layers, but the finished result is going to be absolutely amazing. You can start to lean your cake pop down just so that you keep all of those petals fanning out. So now I wouldn't turn this upside down normally, especially if it's a cake pop, but just so that you can see, we're still working our way around, constantly overlapping. Pick it up and turn it from time to time. And as we get closer to the bottom, we're going to make them go a bit more straight. So you've pulled this back, just so that it can go all the way around the base of our cake pop. And you can see, even though there is some that is not covered, it is going to be a cake pop. And so from the top and from the sides, you have more than enough petals on there. So we've done our test run. I wouldn't go any further than that. You can probably make it a little bit shorter if you prefer, but it's just a matter of taste. So this is also quite a large ball. Our cake pop itself is not quite as big as this one here, so it's going to be a little bit more contained. Now, before we start, we want to make sure that there's enough in our piping bag and that there's no air pockets. If you do need to add a little bit more, now's the time to do it. Whenever you're adjusting, make sure that you've always got the big bottom and the skinny top for the teardrop shape. So again, on the real thing, we're making a quick up and down, which is basically a little S wriggle. Then we're going to start from here, working our way around in a circle and then pressing it down to finish. We've got our candle wick, we're ready to start building our petals. So keeping that arc shape, coming over by about 1/3 of the way on your previous. Your first row is going to be of 4. We're going to continue on, do a row of 5. You're starting to stretch out the size of each of these as you go. And we're just going to continue to keep building. As it gets larger, the amount of petals that you do will just depend on the size of the cake pop. I like most of my round cake pops to be around 26 grams or so. So if you do have a scale and you want to find a size that you're happy with, you can place a bit of parchment paper down and then weigh each of the cake balls before you apply them to your sticks so that you know that they're all exactly the same. Working our way around and down. And when you have your finished product, what you want to do is take a look and decide where you want it to stop. When we're doing our practice run, you can keep doing as many as you like. But now on our finished product, we want to, after every row, just take a look at the top and the sides and see where is a good end point for you. How big do you want your roses to get? So I think we might do one more row and we'll say that this one's all done. Turn. You will get faster at these, but the most important thing is to get those arc shapes looking nice. Don't feel too rushed in the beginning. Okay, so we have one here. Place that into there to dry. You can store them into the fridge, particularly if it's a hot day, but you can see just how you can turn a regular cake pop into a gorgeous buttercream rose.